The human colony of Novara Prime sat quietly on the edge of explored space, a small dot of civilization surrounded by endless stars. Its buildings were simple but functional, made from steel and reinforced glass, with lights that glowed warmly against the cold darkness of the planet. Life here was rough and practical. Every colonist knew hard work, and every newcomer felt the weight of responsibility. Commander Ethan Drake, a seasoned human explorer, strode through the central plaza. His boots clanged against the metal floor as he checked the preparations for the arrival of the alien envoy. The colony had heard rumors for weeks an important visitor from the Zyrathian Empire was coming. The Empire was vast, powerful, and feared across nearby systems. Usually, their ambassadors were stern, formal, and intimidating. But today, Ethan was expecting someone unusual. The transport ship hummed as it descended through the thin Novaran atmosphere. Colonists gathered to watch, whispering guesses about the visitor. When the docking bay doors opened, a small figure stepped out. She was tiny compared to the towering Zyrathians Ethan had seen in old reports. Her skin shimmered faintly under the bay lights, with a soft silver hue. Her hair fell in delicate waves around her shoulders, a color like molten copper. Her eyes, large and violet, shone with intelligence and curiosity, but also a hint of fear. The colonists gasped quietly. Some snickered. "Is that the ambassador?" one muttered. Ethan stepped forward, suppressing a smile. He had been warned that the Emperor often used trickery, but this was unexpected. "Welcome to Novara Prime," Ethan said calmly. The girl hesitated. Her slender hands clasped nervously. I am Lyra," she said softly, her voice melodic, almost musical. She looked around, eyes wide as she took in the bustling colony. It was chaotic compared to the strict order of Zyrath, where every step, every movement, was controlled. "You must be the youngest daughter of the Zyrathian Emperor," Ethan said, choosing his words carefully. "We are honored to host you." Lyra's lips quivered. She had heard whispers in her palace that she was unwanted, that her father, the Emperor, thought her small, gentle, and shy nature made her useless. Sending her to a human colony had been meant as a joke, a humiliation disguised as diplomacy. Her older siblings had been warriors, scholars, or rulers. She had been nothing. But here, no one seemed to judge her. Ethan's calm, respectful tone made her chest tighten with relief. The colonists, however, were not so kind. Some pointed, some whispered. "Is she even real?" One man laughed. "Maybe the Emperor is playing a joke on us." None. Lyra's ears flattened slightly, and she shrank back. The laughter stung, but she held her head high, determined not to show it. She had survived the cold indifference of the imperial court. She could survive this too. Ethan noticed her discomfort immediately. He walked beside her, speaking softly. "Ignore them," he said. "They don't understand yet. Soon, they will see who you really are." Lyra nodded, though uncertainty lingered in her eyes. She had always felt invisible, a shadow in the grand palace of Zyrath. Now, for the first time, someone treated her like she mattered. The first few hours were awkward. Lyra struggled to understand the colony's customs. She flinched at the loud voices, tripped over simple objects, and stared in awe at human machines that seemed crude but powerful. Ethan guided her patiently, explaining each device, each rule. "You see this?" he said, pointing to a large energy generator. "It keeps the colony running. Simple, reliable. You might find it primitive." Lyra's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Primitive, yes, but clever in its own way," she murmured. She reached out tentatively. her delicate fingers tracing the edges of the machine. Ethan watched her with growing admiration. Here was someone small, unassuming, yet eager to learn. By midday, she began to relax. She smiled at the children who approached, showing no fear despite their loud questions. "Hello," she said softly, bowing slightly. The children giggled at her strange gestures, but she laughed too, a soft, musical sound that made Ethan grin. It was clear she was different from anyone in the colony, yet different in a way that was not threatening. She was human in curiosity, alien in appearance, and wholly fascinating. Later, Ethan led Lyra to her quarters, a modest room, simple but comfortable. She paused at the door, glancing back at the bustling colony below. "I was not expected to stay?" she asked quietly. Ethan smiled. "You are our guest. But more than that, I think you might find a place here." "My Enli." Lyra sank onto the bed, unsure whether to believe him. All her life, she had been treated as unworthy, laughed at by her peers, and ignored by her father. Now, a human someone so ordinary, yet so noble in his actions, was offering her kindness and respect. The following days were a mix of wonder and frustration for Lyra. She wandered the colony with Ethan, observing humans at work, trying to understand their strange habits. She spilled water on a console, accidentally triggered a minor alarm, and got caught in a windstorm while exploring outside. Each mistake drew stifled laughter from the colonists, but Ethan always stood by her side, correcting her mistakes without scolding. "You are learning," he said one evening as they repaired a damaged solar panel. "Humans are rough, yes, but we are patient. You must be patient too. With yourself." Lyra looked at him, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. "I have never been treated like this," she admitted softly. "You deserve it," Ethan said simply. "Not because of who your father is, not because of titles, but because of who you are." For the first time, Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling that had been foreign all her life. Perhaps she was not unwanted. Perhaps she could be something more. The colony, meanwhile, began to notice small changes. Lyra helped repair broken machines, offering alien insight that humans could not have imagined. Her delicate hands moved quickly and precisely, manipulating tools in ways humans found strange but effective. She asked questions, observed patterns, and suggested solutions. Slowly, respect replaced laughter. The colonists whispered among themselves, intrigued by the quiet, clever girl who seemed both fragile and uncommonly capable. One afternoon, a minor accident occurred in the hydroponics bay. A pipe burst, threatening to flood the room with nutrient solution. Lyra reacted instinctively, using her small frame to slip through the narrow space and redirect the flow. Humans rushed to help, but she had already stabilized the situation. When the last drop fell safely into a container, she turned to Ethan, flushed but proud. "You see?" Ethan said gently. "You are already showing them who you are. Not a joke. Not unwanted. Valuable." Lyra's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. For the first time, she felt the truth of his words. A seed of confidence had been planted. As evening fell, the sky above Novara Prime blazed with stars. Lyra stood on the balcony of her quarters, gazing at the vast expanse. She thought of her father, the Emperor, and the palace that had been her prison. She thought of her siblings, the ones who had never understood her. And she thought of this human colony, rough and simple, yet filled with people who were beginning to see her for herself. Ethan joined her, leaning on the railing beside her. "You will find your place here," he said softly, "and I will help you," grated he. "I will place." Lyra turned to him, her violet eyes meeting his steady gaze. I do not know what will happen," she said. You will, Ethan replied with certainty. Sometimes, all it takes is one person to see you. Truly, see you. For the first time, Lyra believed it. That night, as the colony slept under the endless stars, Lyra lay awake in her modest quarters. She thought about the strange new world she had stepped into. She thought about the humans who had laughed at her, and then slowly began to respect her. She thought about Ethan, who treated her not as a joke, but as someone worth knowing. A small, almost shy smile crossed her lips. Perhaps being sent as a joke was not a curse, but a chance. Perhaps, in the vast, unexplored corners of space, she could finally be seen. Not as unwanted, not as weak, but as Lyra. And for the first time in her life, she felt hope. The sun rose over Novara Prime, casting a warm golden glow across the colony. Lyra woke early, her violet eyes wide with curiosity. The events of her first days still swirled in her mind, the laughter, the whispered comments, and most of all, the quiet respect Ethan had shown her. She dressed quickly in the simple human clothes Ethan had helped her choose. They were rough compared to the silk robes of Zyrath, but they were practical and comfortable. Ethan was waiting outside, leaning against the edge of the plaza. "Ready for another day of exploration?" he asked, a small smile on his face. Lyra nodded, gripping the straps of her bag. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The humans were still new to her, and their ways often baffled her. But today, she felt a quiet determination. She wanted to prove to herself that she could navigate this strange world. Their first stop was the colony's workshop, a large building filled with strange devices, tools, and machines that hummed and buzzed. Ethan led her inside, carefully showing her the machines one by one. "This is the fabrication unit," he explained. "It can build almost anything we need, using simple materials. Some things are crude, yes, but effective." Lyra's eyes widened as she studied the unit. The technology was simpler than Zyrathian devices, yet elegant in its own way. She moved closer, examining the interface. Her fingers brushed the controls, and she realized she could understand the logic behind it, even if the design was different. "You have a good mind," Ethan said, watching her carefully. "Even small hands can do great things if they understand the pattern." Lyra smiled faintly. It was the first time anyone had complimented her intelligence rather than her appearance or her status. She felt a warmth in her chest she had never felt in the palace. As the morning progressed, Lyra tried her hand at several tasks. She repaired minor malfunctions, cleaned equipment, and even helped a young technician reorganize tools. The humans watched her curiously. Some whispered among themselves, unsure what to make of the delicate alien girl who worked quietly and efficiently. But not everything went smoothly. While testing a small energy module, Lyra misread a control and caused a minor spark. A small alarm rang, and a group of technicians hurried over, frowning. I am sorry," Lyra stammered, stepping back. Ethan stepped forward calmly. "It's fine. Mistakes happen. What matters is how you fix them." He guided her hands, showing her the correct way to adjust the module. Slowly, she corrected her error, and the alarm stopped. The technicians nodded in approval, and a few smiled. Lyra's confidence grew a little more with each success, though she still felt the weight of their judgment. After the workshop, Ethan led Lyra to the colony's training grounds. The humans here practiced self-defense and emergency drills. Lyra had never engaged in combat, not even in the palace, where she had been shielded by her older siblings. The human drills were loud, chaotic, and physical. She hesitated at the edge of the field, unsure how she would manage. "Don't worry," Ethan said. "You don't have to fight perfectly. Just observe, learn, and try. Humans value effort and ingenuity, not just strength." Lyra nodded and stepped forward. She watched the humans carefully, noting how they moved, how they communicated with gestures and shouts, how they improvised when plans failed. Then, slowly, she tried to mimic them. Her movements were awkward at first, but she learned quickly. Humans noticed, and murmurs spread. "She's fast," one said quietly. "Different, but precise," another whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. "See? You already impressed them by trying." By midday, Lyra had learned enough to attempt a basic drill. She moved through the obstacles, using her small size and agility to her advantage. She stumbled once or twice, but recovered quickly. The humans clapped politely, some more enthusiastically than others. Lyra's heart soared. For the first time, she felt capable and seen. After the training, Ethan took Lyra to the colony's gardens. They were simple, yet beautiful, with plants growing in neat rows under protective domes. Lyra admired the greenery, inhaling the earthy scent. "Do you grow things back on Zyrath?" she asked quietly. Ethan shook his head. "Not like this. Humans find ways to survive and thrive, even in harsh conditions. Every plant, every seed. It's a small victory." Lyra thought about her own life. She had survived the harsh judgment of her father, the indifference of her siblings, and the isolation of her status. Each day here, she felt a small victory of her own. As they walked, a minor emergency occurred. One of the water pipes in the garden cracked, sending a small flood toward the seedlings. The gardeners rushed forward, but Lyra noticed it first. She darted to the pipe, her hands delicate but quick. Using techniques she remembered from observing Zyrathian maintenance systems, she redirected the flow, saving the young plants. The humans stared in surprise. "Did she just?" one muttered. Ethan clapped his hands once. "She did. And she did it without hesitation." Lyra felt a warmth of pride she had never known. For the first time, her actions mattered. She had helped, and humans noticed. She looked up at Ethan, who nodded encouragingly. That evening, the two returned to her quarters. Lyra was quiet, lost in thought. "You did well today," Ethan said. "You're learning fast, and the humans are beginning to respect you." Lyra shook her head slightly. "I still feel fragile. Every time I make a mistake, I feel the old fear again." Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Fear is natural, but it doesn't define you. You define yourself, Lyra. Every choice, every action, that is what people will remember." Lyra's eyes shone. I want to be worthy. Not a joke, not someone to pity. I want to be seen." "You are already being seen," Ethan said softly. "And you will be. Even more. As time goes on." The next few days brought new challenges. Lyra tried her hand at colony tasks, repairing broken solar panels, helping engineers with maintenance, and assisting in minor medical tasks. Each task tested her patience, skill, and confidence. Some days, she stumbled and faltered. Other days, she shined. The colonists began to change their opinions. Those who had laughed at her before now whispered in awe, "She's clever. Did you see that? I never thought someone so small could do that." Lyra noticed the change but remained humble. She didn't seek praise. She only wanted to learn, to grow, and to understand this strange, human world that welcomed her in a way her own palace never had. One afternoon, Ethan brought her to the colony's observation deck, overlooking the vast plains of Novara Prime. The wind was cold, but the view was breathtaking. "Do you see that?" Ethan asked, pointing to a distant ridge. "That's where the first settlers landed. They had nothing but their wits and their courage. They built this place from the ground up." Lyra gazed at the ridge, imagining the struggles, the failures, and the small victories of those early humans. She thought about her own life, the loneliness, the fear, and the constant feeling of being unwanted. Yet now, here, she could see a different path. Perhaps, like the settlers, she could build her own place in this world. Suddenly, an alarm rang from the colony's communication hub. A minor technical failure had caused a warning signal. Ethan and Lyra rushed to the scene. The problem was small, but the timing was critical. Lyra stepped forward instinctively, using her understanding of alien systems to stabilize the issue before humans could fully react. The engineers looked at her in surprise. "How did she do that?" one asked. Ethan smiled quietly. "She's learning, and she's brave enough to act." For the first time, Lyra felt truly capable. She had acted not out of orders or pressure, but because she wanted to help. She was beginning to understand that her value was not determined by her father, her siblings, or the past. Her worth was her own. As night fell over Novara Prime, Lyra stood on the observation deck once more, looking up at the stars. She felt a quiet pride, a sense of belonging she had never known. She knew challenges lay ahead, and that she would still stumble. But for the first time, she felt ready to face them. Ethan joined her silently. "You're doing well," he said. Lyra turned to him, a small smile on her lips. "I want to be worthy of being here, and I think I am starting to feel like I belong." Ethan nodded. "And you do. One day, everyone will see it too." As the stars glimmered above, Lyra realized something important. Being unwanted in one world did not mean she was worthless in another. Here, she could grow, learn, and shine. And with Ethan's guidance, she might just prove that even the unwanted could become extraordinary. The calm of Novara Prime was broken one morning by the sharp warning sirens of the colony. The sky above the settlement darkened as a massive shadow appeared on the horizon, a rogue Zyrathian warship, far larger and more powerful than anything the colony had faced. Panic rippled through the population. Ethan ran through the plaza, shouting orders. "Everyone to shelters, secure the energy hub, protect civilians." Lyra followed close behind, her heart pounding, but her mind sharp. This was unlike anything she had faced before, not a test, not a minor mistake, but a real threat that could destroy everything. Her training with Ethan, her practice in human ways, all of it suddenly mattered. The humans scrambled, moving quickly under Ethan's direction. But the warship's arrival brought fear. Its weapons began firing, small energy bolts hitting buildings and sending sparks flying. Lyra watched, her violet eyes wide, and then she noticed the panic among the human engineers trying to stabilize the colony's defenses. "Ethan, what should I do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Help where you can," Ethan replied. "Use your knowledge. Trust yourself." Lyra took a deep breath. She remembered her lessons in the workshop, her observations of human machinery, and the small successes she had had in the gardens and training grounds. Moving quickly, she ran toward the energy hub, where several engineers struggled to prevent a critical overload. Her delicate hands worked fast, adjusting controls and rerouting energy flows. Sparks flew, and alarms blared, but she stayed focused. Ethan came to her side, guiding her where needed. Together, they stabilized the hub just in time. The lights flickered back on across the colony, and a cheer went up from the people who had been watching from safe distances. Lyra's heart raced, but she felt an unfamiliar sense of strength. For the first time, she acted not out of fear or obligation, but because she knew she could make a difference. Humans began to see her in a new light. And even some of the skeptical colonists nodded in respect. The warship, however, was far from defeated. It fired repeatedly at the colony's defensive walls, testing their strength. Ethan and Lyra moved to the command center to coordinate the defense. The humans manned the turrets, and Ethan gave precise instructions, but the rogue Zyrathian ship was smart, adjusting its attacks with every failed strike. "Lyra," Ethan said urgently, "we need an idea." You know their technology better than we do. Can you help us? Lyra studied the holographic displays, remembering the Zyrathian systems she had seen in the palace. The rogue ship used a familiar pattern, predictable but fast. With a sudden clarity, she began suggesting countermeasures. Rerouting power, setting traps, and even creating a temporary energy shield using the colony's own generators. The humans followed her instructions hesitantly at first, unsure if a small, fragile girl could guide them in such a crisis. But soon, it became clear her strategy worked. Energy blasts from the rogue ship deflected harmlessly, and several turrets landed precise hits. The tide of battle shifted, and hope returned to the defenders. Amidst the chaos, Lyra noticed a group of human children trapped near the edge of the plaza. Without hesitation, she dashed forward, moving faster than most humans could manage. She lifted them, one by one, carrying them to safety behind a reinforced barrier. Her small size and agility allowed her to dodge falling debris and energy bursts. Ethan saw her actions and felt a surge of pride. "You're incredible," he shouted over the noise. "Keep going." Lyra's cheeks flushed. Not from fear, but from the realization that her courage mattered. For years, she had been taught to hide, to shrink, to be unimportant. Now, every step she took, every choice she made, mattered. She was not unwanted. She was needed. The rogue ship's captain, a menacing Zyrathian with cold, calculating eyes, observed from within. He had been sent to retrieve Lyra and punish the humans for daring to treat her well. But now, watching her act with bravery and intelligence, he paused. This unwanted daughter was no longer weak. Back in the command center, Ethan and Lyra coordinated the final phase of their defense. Lyra suggested using a series of energy pulses to disable the rogue ship's shields temporarily. Humans and Lyra worked together, combining technology from both worlds. When the pulses hit, the enemy ship faltered, and the colony's weapons scored decisive hits. The warship retreated, damaged and humiliated. The colony erupted in cheers. Humans who had doubted her now gathered around Lyra, clapping and smiling. She had saved lives, stabilized the colony, and guided its defense against one of the most feared ships in the sector. For the first time, she felt a deep connection to this place and its people. Ethan approached her, his expression serious but proud. "You were brilliant," he said quietly. "Not a joke, not fragile, brilliant." Lyra felt her eyes fill with tears, but she did not try to hide them. She had never been praised like this before. Not by her father, not by her siblings, not by anyone in the palace. But here, on this distant human colony, someone truly saw her worth. You think I really belong here?" she whispered. Ethan smiled. "You do. More than you know. And you've earned their respect too. They see what I see. A person of courage, intelligence, and heart." The days following the battle were quieter, but they were not idle. Repairs were ongoing, and Lyra continued to work alongside humans, sharing knowledge, learning more about their technology, and helping in ways only she could. Colonists who had once laughed at her mistakes now sought her advice. Engineers asked for her insight on stabilizing alien technology. Children followed her, fascinated by her small frame and quick mind. Lyra had become not only respected, but admired. One evening, Ethan invited her to the observation deck again. The sky was dark and filled with stars, peaceful after the storm. "You did more than survive today," he said. "You showed what humans and aliens can do when they work together, and you showed them who you really are." Sen. 70. Lyra looked out over the colony, seeing the buildings, the people, and the small glimmers of light that represented hope. "I never thought I could make a difference," she admitted. "You already have," Ethan said. "Every life you saved, every action you took, They all mattered. You've shown that even someone considered unwanted can be extraordinary. Lyra felt warmth spread through her chest. The fear of being unwanted, of being a joke, was still there, but it was no longer overwhelming. She had proven to herself, and to others, that she had value. She had courage, intelligence, and compassion. She had begun to belong. Over the following weeks, the bond between Lyra and Ethan grew stronger. He taught her more about human ways, how to repair machinery, how to strategize in emergencies, and even how to navigate the colony socially. Lyra, in turn, shared glimpses of Zyrathian knowledge, helping humans understand alien technology in ways they had never imagined. The colony began to thrive. Lyra's presence brought new energy. She inspired humans to look beyond appearances, to value skill and heart over tradition and expectation. Her story spread, not as the tale of a joke sent by an emperor, but as the tale of a small, courageous girl who stood tall in the face of danger. One evening, as Lyra practiced with some young recruits in the training field, she paused and looked at Ethan. "Do you think my father will ever see me differently?" she asked softly. Ethan considered her question. "Perhaps, but it doesn't matter what he thinks. You've found your place here. You've earned respect, friendship, and trust. That is far more important than approval from someone who couldn't see your worth before." Lyra nodded, a small smile forming. She had learned that being valued was not about titles or status, it was about actions, courage, and the willingness to care for others. As the night settled over Novara Prime, Lyra stood beside Ethan, looking at the stars. The memories of the palace, of her father's indifference, and the whispers of being unwanted no longer weighed her down. She had proven herself, she had saved lives, and she had begun to belong in this strange, human world. And for the first time, she felt truly strong. The future was uncertain, and dangers would surely come again. But Lyra knew one thing for certain. She was no longer a joke. She was a force to be reckoned with. A bridge between humans and Zyrathians, and someone who could change the world not by birthright, but by heart, courage, and determination. And beside her, Ethan smiled, knowing that the unwanted daughter of an alien emperor was now the brightest star on Novara Prime. The sun rose over Novara Prime, casting soft golden light across the colony. After the chaos of the rogue Zyrathian warship, life had returned to a cautious normal. Repairs continued, patrols kept watch, and the colonists quietly rebuilt what had been damaged. Yet there was a new energy in the air, a sense of pride, hope, and respect for the girl who had once been considered unwanted. Lyra stood in the central plaza, watching humans move efficiently through the tasks of daily life. She had grown more confident over the past weeks. Her small frame and delicate appearance no longer invited ridicule. Humans spoke to her with respect, asking her opinion, listening carefully to her ideas. She had begun to understand human culture, their ways of thinking, and their deep resilience. Ethan approached, carrying a small tablet of colony updates. "You have become a vital part of this place," he said quietly. "The colonists see you not as an outsider, but as one of them. And I think you've changed yourself too." Lyra glanced at him, a soft smile on her lips. "I never imagined I could feel this," she said. "A part of something. Seen. Valued." "You earned it," Ethan replied. "Every step. Every choice you made during the attack. And even before that. It showed them who you truly are." Lyra nodded, reflecting on the journey she had taken. Her father, the Emperor, had treated her as a joke, sending her to this colony as if it were a punishment. But humans had taught her a new lesson. Courage, intelligence, and heart mattered more than birthright or status. She had learned that even someone deemed unwanted could shine. That evening, a message arrived from the Zyrathian Emperor himself. The communication screen flickered to life, showing a stern, regal figure seated on a throne in the palace of Zyrath. His eyes were sharp, scanning Lyra as if measuring her worth. "Daughter," the Emperor said, his voice cold but controlled. "Reports of your actions have reached me. I hear you have performed admirably among humans. Explain this." Lyra stood tall, her voice steady. "I did what I could to help. Humans are not my subjects or servants, they are individuals, and they needed assistance. I acted with courage, intelligence, and care, as any responsible person should." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "And the humans? They respect you?" "Yes," Lyra said, meeting his gaze. "Not because of my title, but because of what I did. They saw me for myself, not as someone unwanted." There was a long silence. The Emperor's expression did not soften, but something in his eyes shifted curiosity, perhaps even respect. "It seems I underestimated you, Lyra. Perhaps I judged you unfairly." Lyra felt a strange mixture of pride and relief. For years, she had sought approval from someone who could not see her value. Now, she realized it no longer mattered. She had proven herself to those who counted not only humans, but to herself as well. After the call, Lyra turned to Ethan. "Father, he still cannot say he is proud. But I do not need that anymore. I have found pride in myself, and in this colony." Ethan nodded. "That is true strength. Recognition is pleasant, but it is not required. You already know your worth." In the following days, the colony began to celebrate its recovery and the bravery of its defenders. A special gathering was held in the central plaza. Humans of all ages came together to honor those who had helped protect the colony, but special attention was given to Lyra. Children surrounded her, asking questions about her abilities and alien customs. Engineers sought her advice on machinery and energy systems. Even skeptical adults approached her, nodding respectfully and thanking her for her contributions. Lyra felt a warmth she had never known in the palace. No one laughed at her mistakes. No one dismissed her ideas. Instead, they listened, learned, and valued her presence. She realized that kindness, respect, and courage were more powerful than any title or status. Ethan joined her at the edge of the plaza. "Look at them," he said softly. "They see you, Lyra. Not as a joke, not as a fragile girl, but as someone extraordinary." Lyra's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You belong," Ethan said firmly. "You always have, even when you didn't know it." As the celebration continued, a delegation from the Zyrathian Empire arrived unexpectedly. The Emperor himself had sent observers to witness the outcome of Lyra's actions firsthand. The crowd grew silent as tall, armored Zyrathians entered the plaza. Lyra's heart beat faster, but she did not falter. She had faced fear before, and now she stood with confidence. The Emperor's representatives approached her, speaking in their formal, precise manner. "Daughter of Zyrath," one said, "your deeds have reached us. You have acted with skill and courage beyond expectation." Lyra bowed respectfully. "Thank you. I did what I could to help the humans and protect the colony." The lead representative nodded. "You have demonstrated that strength, intelligence, and heart are more important than birthright alone. The Emperor has noted this." From the edge of the plaza, Ethan watched quietly, pride swelling in his chest. Lyra had faced the judgment of her own people, the skepticism of humans, and the chaos of battle, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and respected. Later that evening, as the plaza emptied, Lyra stood with Ethan on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "I never imagined I could feel this." "Accepted," she said softly. "Not just by humans, but by myself." "You earned it," Ethan replied. "Not by waiting for recognition, but by acting with courage and heart. That is what makes you extraordinary." Lyra smiled faintly. "I used to fear being unwanted, being a joke. But now I see. It was not where I belonged that mattered. It was how I acted, and how I chose to treat others. Ethan nodded. Exactly. You treated others with respect, care, and courage. And in return, you were respected. You've become a bridge between humans and Zyrathians, showing both worlds that cooperation and trust are stronger than fear or judgment. Lyra turned her gaze to the distant horizon, where the first lights of the colony flickered against the darkness. She thought of the humans who had once doubted her, laughed at her, and then slowly began to accept her. She thought of Ethan, who had seen her worth from the very beginning, and she thought of herself, the girl who had been considered unwanted, now standing tall, respected, and valued. The Zyrathian Emperor's message had come as a surprise, but it was no longer necessary for her self-worth. She had proven herself to those who truly mattered, and she had earned a place in a world far different from the cold, judgmental halls of her father's palace. In the following days, Lyra continued her work with the colony. She trained with humans, shared her knowledge of alien technology, and helped teach young recruits. She became a symbol of courage and intelligence, not because of her status as a princess, but because of her actions. The humans learned from her just as she learned from them. Together, they created small innovations, combining human practicality with alien insight. Novara Prime began to thrive, not just as a colony, but as a beacon of cooperation and understanding between two very different worlds. One evening, as the twin suns set over the plains, Ethan and Lyra walked along the outskirts of the colony. "Do you think we can truly change the way humans and Zyrathians see each other?" Lyra asked. Ethan smiled. "Yes. You've already started. One act of courage, one display of heart, can change minds and hearts. And you've done more than anyone could expect." Lyra nodded, a soft determination in her eyes. "Then I will continue. I will not be just a guest here. I will help both worlds understand that respect, care, and courage are what truly matter." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "And I will be by your side. Together, we can accomplish more than either of us imagined." Lyra looked up at the stars, feeling a sense of belonging she had never known. She was no longer unwanted. She was no longer a joke. She had become something greater, respected, admired, and, most importantly, herself. As the night settled over Novara Prime, Lyra and Ethan stood together, looking toward the future. A new chapter had begun, one where humans and Zyrathians could work together, learn from each other, and build a stronger, brighter world. And at the center of it all, Lyra shone not because of her birthright, but because of her courage, her heart, and the human who had treated her like gold. In that quiet, starlit moment, Lyra finally understood what it meant to belong. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and emerged stronger. She had turned a joke into a story of hope, courage, and respect. And the galaxy, vast and full of challenges, would remember the unwanted daughter who became extraordinary.